Now that we've had a chance to take a look at the weather systems and the weather that they bring, it's now time for us to go on and have a look at how those weather systems can be represented on weather maps. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at this video from the BBC, which shows you a very good kind of both introduction to this next little section and a recap on the previous section as well. So if you haven't, make sure you go back and do that. But the type of maps that we're going to be referring to are known as synoptic maps. Now, you need to know the definition of those. They're summary maps which combine various elements of the weather in the forecast, especially pressure, isobars, fronts, and in some cases weather symbols. Now, here are the weather symbols. Now, the first thing to say about this is, as you'll notice in your book, you don't need to learn that table. You'll be given a key for this in the exam if you're given one of these maps. So what you need to be able to do is to use it, and that's what this little exercise is for. This one here shows you what the different aspects of the weather are and how they're represented on the weather symbol. The number is the temperature. Then the cloud cover, if you remember, cloud cover is measured in octaves, eighths. So these are the little symbols here for those. I introduced you to those in an earlier video, so hopefully you remember that. This little symbol here is the symbol for the precipitation, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of different symbols there that can represent them. And then you've got your wind speed, which is represented by these little feathers on here, and there's your key. And your wind direction. Now let's take a look at station R first of all. I'm going to do that with you and then I'll get you to have a go at station S. So we'll start with the simplest one. The temperature here is clearly 18 degrees C. In terms of the cloud cover is half here, so that is your 4 octaves. 4 octaves of cloud cover. Here's your precipitation. You've got a circle, which is rain, and you've got a little down triangle, which is a shower, so this is a rain shower. And then finally, you've got your wind speed. Now, each little half feather is worth 5 knots, so you have got 2 full feathers, there's 20 knots, plus 2 more half feathers to give you 3 full feathers, means that the wind speed here is 30 knots. Finally, wind direction. Remember, wind is always named after the direction it comes from, and if you imagine this like a little tadpole with the tail pointing the direction it's come from, so the direction it's come from is southwest. Right, pause the video and see if you can figure out the same for station S. I'll give you a chance to do that and we'll check in with you. Right, let's see how you've got on. Temperature, did you say 6 degrees? Good. Precipitation, the little symbol here for snow. Well done. 8 octaves of cloud cover, complete cloud cover there, absolutely. And you've got a half feather there, which is 5 knots of wind, and it's coming from the northeast. Good stuff. I'm sure you did fine with that. Right, if you go over your page in your notes, then this is what a rather complicated weather map can look like. It's more complicated than anything you'll get in the exam, so don't panic too much with this one. But I'm looking for you to state 5 weather facts for D, A and G. Let's find them first of all. There's D, there's A, and there's G. Now, we need to locate these within the depression. So let's have a careful look at what the weather map is showing here. Let me see if I can indicate this on for you here. I'll select blue for this on the thinner line. Let's get this out of the way. There is your cold front. Select orange for this. There is your warm front. And up there's your clouded front. So what you've got here is a depression passing over. So you've got this D here is before the warm front. A is in the warm sector. And G is after the cold front. Take a little bit of time just to get yourself orientated with this. in front of the warm front, there it is there, in the warm sector, in between the warm front and cold front, and after the cold front. Now, from what you already know, you should be able to kind of guess what the weather will be like with those. Let's go through and have a look at each of those in turn. Okay, so what I need you to do is to use your key. Have we go at writing down the 5 weather facts for those weather stations there. Pause the video, have we go at that, and then I'll check over the answers with you. So just remind you where these are. This is D ahead of the warm front. This is A in the warm sector, and this is G after the cold front. So let's just match them up to this, which is that cross section again, just to see if this will help us whenever we're doing our answers for this. Now, at the approach of the warm front at D, the first thing in terms of temperature is 6 degrees C. Then the cloud is beginning to build, so we're seeing here that we have got 6 octaves of cloud. And the wind speed, let me just check, was that half feather, full feather? I'll just go back here and check, right. That's a full feather. So the wind speed here is 10 knots. The wind direction is coming from the southeast, and there is a little semicircle there, so you've got some drizzle. Drizzle is exactly what you would expect as the warm front begins to arrive. What about in the warm sector? Well, you've moved into your TM area here, so you're going to expect the temperature to increase, aren't you? And indeed it does, up to 14 degrees C. Sometimes cloud cover, sometimes not in the warm sector. So you've got 4 octaves, about half the sky is covered in cloud. Again, pretty much what you would expect. The wind speed is up here to 2 feathers, so that's now up to 20 knots. And your wind direction is swung around. Now it's coming from the southwest. And there is no rain at all. Again, exactly what you would expect in the warm sector. Finally, behind the cold front, you're now into your PM air, so you would expect the temperature to have dropped, and it has dropped down to 5 degrees C. You'd expect the wind direction to kind of swing around now to kind of a west or northwest direction. The wind speed has picked up a little bit now, it's 25 knots. And the cloud cover here is 5 octaves, which again is exactly what you would expect, because that's your sunshine and showers weather. So that's how you read that off the table, and how then you can relate this back to what you already know about the weather that you would expect to get as a depression passes over.